The cost of the southern border is going up. President Biden moved $2 billion in virus funds to deal with the border crisis. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called the border crisis a national security crisis. That's after he was briefed on the suspected terrorists caught at the U.S. Mexico border last month. And what about threats from space? The Pentagon is set to release a declassified report on UFOs in June. While some scoff at it, others are cautioning it's a threat that should be taken seriously. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Let's kick off with the southern border. President Biden has moved $2 billion in virus funds to deal with the border crisis. But before we get into that, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy called the border crisis a national security crisis. His comments come after a security briefing Tuesday about the suspected terrorists caught at the U.S. Mexico border last month. The contents of the memo remain classified, but McCarthy told Fox News what he learned made him even more concerned for America's security than before. He went on to say the border crisis has spiraled into a national security crisis, and with public reports showing that more than 1,500 individuals evade law enforcement at the border every day, it must be immediately addressed. McCarthy requested the classified briefing last month after two Yemeni men caught at the border were identified on a terror watch list. Now let's turn to the rising cost of the border crisis. Politico reported the Department of Health and Human Services took out $850 million from funds kept aside for testing in President Biden's massive $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill. According to the HHS spokesman, Secretary Javier Becerra pulled another $850 million out of a fund meant to replenish the strategic national stockpile. That's for items like medical gloves, masks, antibiotics, and ventilators, and another $436 million taken out of other health programs. The funds pulled total over $2 billion. Are these transfers legal? Yes, as long as Congress is notified. So what are these funds for? They go towards the emergency shelters near the U.S. Mexico border to deal with the influx of illegal immigrants, particularly unaccompanied children. Politico notes the funds far exceed the amount usually allocated for the unaccompanied migrant children program. But the report of these funds being pulled from the virus relief package come on the heels of Secretary Becerra asking a congressional committee for another $905 million for the pandemic-depleted stockpile. Becerra saying at the time the fight against COVID-19 is not yet over, adding even as HHS works to beat this pandemic, we are also preparing for the next public health crisis. The number of illegal border crossings has gone up since Biden took office. In March, illegal border crossings was over 150,000 compared to 75,000 in January. The number of unaccompanied minors or children also went up, with March seeing nearly 19,000 compared to around 13,000 in January. The U.S. has struggled to contain them, opening more than a dozen new facilities and asking foster parents to take them in. Homeland Security head Alejandro Mayorkas said this year the U.S. is on pace to encounter more illegal immigrants crossing the border than any year in the past 2 decades. There's also been an increase in unaccompanied migrant children crossing over. President of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judd, told Fox News the situation at the border qualifies as a crisis. Republicans say Biden's moves to rescind Trump-era immigration policies essentially served as a welcome mat for illegal immigrants. As president, Biden has undone over 12 immigration policies that President Trump had put in place to curb illegal immigration. On his first day in office, Biden signed executive orders reversing several of the Trump administration's immigration policies. He says he wants to legalize 11 million illegal immigrants. Experts say Biden's immigration policies are attracting migrants and fueling a crisis. Biden says there isn't a crisis at the border. He says we will be able to handle it. And it seems to be a trend that's continuing. Biden recently revoked a series of executive orders from the Trump era. This includes a 2019 proclamation that prevented immigrants who couldn't prove they could afford health care from getting visas. Former President Trump says data shows that lawful immigrants are about 3 times more likely than citizens not to have health care insurance. And this order protected Americans from being burdened with the cost of uncompensated care. Biden reversed this order, saying this does not advance the interests of the United States. He says his administration can expand access to quality, affordable health care without excluding immigrants with financial struggles. And now renewed calls for Biden to bring back the Remain in Mexico program. The Trump-era policy sends migrants back to Mexico while they wait for a court to process their asylum claims. Biden had suspended that program upon taking office. Instead, he reinstated catch and release, a process whereby illegal aliens are released directly into the United States while awaiting the courts. Senator Marsha Blackburn introduced legislation seeking to reinstate former President Trump's migrant protection protocols to curb the recent surge of illegal immigrants at the border. The bill is named Make the Migrant Protection Protocols Mandatory Act. It would require migrants who cross the southern border without proper documentation to remain in Mexico until their case is heard. Blackburn says President Biden's failed immigration policies have created a crisis at our southern border, adding over 500,000 illegal aliens have been apprehended at our southern border since Biden was sworn into office. Biden repealed President Trump's successful policy that forced migrants to remain in Mexico while seeking asylum. My legislation will stop Biden's decision to catch and release migrants into our communities and reinstate President Trump's Remain in Mexico program. While Blackburn is maintaining using the terminology illegal aliens, the Biden administration has been pushing for that to change. Instead, Customs and Border officials are to use non-citizen or migrant. Top leaders within the ICE and CBP all got the memos. It is seen as part of a push under the current administration to overturn Trump-era policies. Advocates say using the term illegal alien is dehumanizing and conjures up images of UFOs and space aliens. Critics, meanwhile, point out undocumented doesn't properly convey that such individuals have, in fact, crossed the border and remain in the U.S. illegally. Speaking of space aliens, let's talk about UFOs. A video posted online appears to show a UFO sighting in California. A video from Friday shows an object hovering left to right. At one point, the object seems to plunge into the water. Filmmaker Jeremy Corbell posted the video on his Twitter account. He says that the U.S. Navy photographed and filmed the UFO in 2019. According to Corbell's website, it was filmed at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. He believes this incident is a breakthrough and mystery, and that the Navy or Pentagon may or may not have more information. This comes as the Pentagon is going to release a declassified report on UFOs in June. That's because when the $2.3 trillion virus relief and government spending bills passed before the new year on December 28th, it also triggered a countdown. The Pentagon has 180 days for its UAP, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, to release declassified information to the Senate Intelligence Committee. That's regarding their current intelligence on advanced aerial threats from UFOs. 108 days from December 28th is June 26th. So, what's in this report? Well, former Director of National Intelligence under Trump, JohnRadcliffe, told Fox News host Maria Bartiromo in March that it contains a lot more than previously made public. He says some of those have been declassified, and when we talk about sightings, we are talking about objects that have been seen by Navy or Air Force pilots, or have been picked up by a satellite imagery that frankly engages in actions that are difficult to explain, movements that are hard to replicate that we don't have the technology for, or traveling at speeds that exceed the sound barrier without a sonic boom. He went on to say he wanted to have that information declassified and made public before he left office, but it was impossible in such a short amount of time. He also said he thinks Americans would be surprised about the number of sightings, saying there are a lot more sightings of UFOs than have been made public. Now, this upcoming report is getting some attention. Senator Marco Rubio told CBS News 60 Minutes on Sunday, "There is a stigma on Capitol Hill. Some of my colleagues are very interested in this topic and some kind of giggle when you bring it up." He goes on to say, "I don't think we can allow the stigma to keep us from having an answer to a very fundamental question." He wants the Pentagon to come up with a process to take UFOs or unidentified flying objects seriously. Rubio suggests that there be a place where this is cataloged and constantly analyzed until we get some answers. He goes on to say maybe it has a very simple answer, maybe it doesn't. He also told a TMZ reporter recently that he is concerned about unknown objects flying over military bases, saying, quote, "Nobody knows what it is and it isn't ours. There is stuff flying over the top of our military installations and they don't know who's flying it. They don't even know what it is. So that's a problem." Last month, a reporter and filmmaker leaked multiple videos of UFOs to the public. The Pentagon confirms that they are real. A Pentagon spokesperson told the Black Vault that the UAPTF, or Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, has included these incidents in their ongoing examinations. The Pentagon's Inspector General is evaluating how the Pentagon has responded to unidentified aerial phenomena, including UFOs. In a newly released memo, the watchdog said it plans to begin the investigation next month. So how fast can these objects go? Well, according to two Navy pilots, quite fast. They appeared on CBS's 60 Minutes and told their experience, saying they spotted an unidentified object with no wings or markings in an area of roiling whitewater amid a placid ocean. As soon as they tried to track it, it sped off, going an estimated 60 miles in 3 to 4 seconds. One of the pilots told CBS he felt, quote, "the vulnerability of not having anything to defend ourselves," adding he then felt confused when it disappeared. The other pilot said, "I don't know who's building it, who's got the technology, who's got the brains. But there's something out there that was better than our airplane. I want to see how close I can get. So I go like this, and it's climbing still. And when it gets right in front of me, it just disappears, like gone." That encounter happened 100 miles southwest of San Diego, California in November of 2004. The vehicles that they saw were able to descend over 80,000 feet in less than 1 second. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.